psychology major and a music minor. And I took about 4 music classes and 1 psychology class. And I remember I auditioned for a vocal jazz group. And this vocal jazz group only had 12 people in it. And they were performing with people like Bobby McFerrin and on the David Letterman show. And they were incredible. It was called The Shades of Blue. And it was directed by a man named Dwayne Davis, who's kind of a star in that world. So I auditioned for the choir, and I thought, if I get in this choir, that's a sign. I think I'm going to pursue more music and not worry too much about basketball, even though I'll still play, but maybe that's not, you know, really going to be a future. So I made it in to the choir, and that was kind of a turning point for me. I became a music major. I eventually transferred to a school named Western Michigan University, and I decided to become a music education major. But that took me some time to get there. It took me some time to figure out that that's really what I loved. But I figured it out when I knew singing with other people and working with other people making music was what I loved the most. And I figured all my passion about psychology was exactly what I wanted to do in a musical setting. So there I was.
Pause you right there for a second, Amanda, just because I realized I wasn't recording from the beginning. So for those of us that are watching this outside of live time, this is Amanda Quist from the University of Miami. She's director extraordinaire over there and does many numerous other things as well. And so what you just missed that I didn't record was that in middle school, she was highly involved in basketball and sang, and then in high school, she actually wanted to pursue psychology, and because she ended up going through some family issues, divorce and whatnot, and wanted to help other people through situations like that as well. And it really wasn't until college that you actually made the decision that you were going to pursue music as a full-time career.
That's right.
Wow, that's pretty cool, pretty impressive. Okay, awesome.
Wow.
Sorry.
There I was.
No, it's good to have him in case
So
we're upset. So yeah, the questions are very specific.
I'm going to mute everybody here for a second, and then let me unmute you, I think. Let me see, where did you go? Here you are, unmute. Okay, there we go, go ahead.
Yeah, perfect. So I finished my music education degree, which meant I was a certified teacher. Then I started teaching high school and middle school choir.
Oh, both.
Both at the same time. So half of my day was at the high school and half of my day was at the middle school.
Wow.
I taught 7th and 8th grade choir. And then also I was hired to be a director for a children's chorus called the North American Choral Company in Grand Rapids, which was the choral company founded by Sean Ivory and Paul Caldwell. If you know them, they've done several arrangements and additions, and it was their children's choir organization. And I was lucky to work with the middle school children's choir in that, and we toured and did all kinds of things. And I learned a lot about teaching and about people. So I taught high school and middle school for 4 years and loved every minute of it. But I decided that I always knew that there was something about college level teaching that I wanted to do. And I think it had to do more with the repertoire than anything, because the people are the same. But the repertoire at the college level, I was able to pursue, major works, Brahms, Bach, etc. And I thought, maybe I'll give this a shot. Went back and did my master's degree in choral conducting. And I did that at Western Michigan University. And then I went directly into a doctorate in choral conducting at the University of North Texas. And a master's degree is usually 2 years. A doctoral degree is usually a 3-year degree, but I did it actually in 2 years plus a summer. I think partly because I was able to test out of a bunch of stuff at the beginning. And so I just got myself out of requirements and so forth. So I finished my doctorate, and then I was hired to begin teaching at San Jose State University in California. I was the Director of Choral Activities there, which was incredible, and was planning on staying there for a long time. But then I got a phone call from Westminster Choir College, who wanted me to interview for a position.
Wow.
And Westminster Choir College is considered by most choral people one of the greatest places for choral study, because it is focused on choral singing. So every student that comes to Westminster is either a vocalist, a pianist, or an organist. Those are the three principal instruments you can have. And everybody sings in choir every day. And so when they contacted me, I thought, well, I better take a look at this. So I flew out to New Jersey, did the interview, and had no idea if they would call me or what would happen. They called me and they wanted me to come and be their new chapel choir director, as well as be a partner with the Symphonic Choir. So, and I know this is a lot of talking, so I'll pause in a second if you have questions, but the Symphonic Choir is the choir. If you've ever seen an orchestra like the New World Symphony or the Philadelphia Orchestra or the New York Philharmonic, any of those professional orchestras, when they do works with choirs like the Mozart Requiem, the Brahms Requiem, they often, those groups would hire us, Westminster Choir College, to be the choir. So we got to perform with some of the world's most incredible, you know, Grammy-winning professional orchestras from Berlin and Dresden and England and all over. And that's an opportunity I didn't want to pass up. I wanted to have a chance to prepare choirs for those conductors and to learn what they did. So I taught at Westminster, and then I also became their early music person there. And so there was an early music ensemble, and we focused a lot on anything that was Renaissance or Baroque music. And if you've ever sung madrigals or anything like that, you probably have done that repertoire. So I worked with that group for several years, and we ended up recording a CD, and I'll put the link for that in here if you're interested. We won the American Prize in Choral Performance, which was really cool. You know, in the United States, they choose 1 or 2 choirs to win that prize at the university level. We did that, and we performed for all kinds of festivals and did European tours. So my work at Westminster was amazing, and I was there for about 9 years. And I became the chair of conducting organ and sacred music, which means that I was the administrative head of that entire department, as well as a conductor there. And then finally, last year, my husband and I decided it was time to start a family. And so I got pregnant with my son, and I bowed out for a little while of teaching, of course. And it just so happens that this position at the University of Miami came up, and my husband had lived in Miami for about 12 years or so, because he had been a student at the University of Miami. And we decided, and this is something that won't make sense to you now, but maybe when you're in your 20s, you know, when you have 2 people in a family, my husband's a jazz musician and a composer and a teacher and a performer. When you have 2 kind of artists in a family, sometimes it's hard to find a place where both people can have jobs. And we really wanted to come to a place where he had a lot of connections in the area. And so when the job opened up, we thought, you know, let's just try it. Let's just throw our hat in the ring. And everything happened really fast. And I ended up, I came down to Miami 8 months pregnant, which was probably a really bad decision, and interviewed for the job. And they ended up offering me the job. And so here I am now. I'm the Director of Choral Activities at the University of Miami. And what's interesting about that is there are only about 3 or 4 programs in the country that have doctoral programs that are led by women, actually. Mm-hmm. So I didn't take the job for that reason, but it just happens to be sort of an interesting fact that there just aren't that many women yet leading those kinds of programs, but there are more and more. And so that's just kind of fun, because it's a different kind of conversation piece, you know. So that's kind of been my path professionally. And then the last thing I'll say is I do a lot of honor choir conducting. So states will contact me and say, hey, come and be our honor choir conductor. And some of you know what that means. But for example, next year I'm going to be doing the Texas All-State Mixed Honor Choir. And so I will go to Texas, and they have about 15,000 students who audition for the All-State, and there will be about 250 of them that will form this choir, and I'll be with them for about 3 days, and we'll put this whole concert together, and then we'll perform it. And so I do that several times a year, and it's one of the things I love, because I miss working with younger students. I love working with high school students. I just did a middle school honor choir in North Carolina as well, and that was awesome. So I do miss working with younger singers and younger students. So that gives me an opportunity to do that. So those are some of the things that are kind of a part of my job. But back in, middle school, I would have never imagined any of this was going to happen. So, yeah, I'll just kind of start with that and then see what else we'd like to talk about.
Wow, that's pretty crazy. So during your journey there, I mean, it must have felt pretty good to be suddenly contacted instead of having to constantly go out and apply for interview stuff, like for somebody to contact you and say, hey, why don't you come work over here? That's
well, I certainly had to go through an interview process, and there were candidates. So, it's like an invitation to apply. But of course I was honored. I mean, I think that whatever my particular skill set, I think is what they felt they needed at that time. And so they reached out to me to apply for the job, and I wasn't planning on going anywhere, but it just it was like a door opened, and I thought I might as well explore this rather than just shut the door and say, forget it. So, and I'm glad I did. But you just never know.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome. Cool. So would you say that your choir experience then played a huge aspect into bringing you to where you are today?
Absolutely. Singing in choir is probably my favorite thing in the world. I love it, and I've always loved it. I feel better about everything when I've been singing with other people. I think that my high school choir director once said to me, hey, you should be a high school choir director. And I remember saying, no, that's not me. I'm not a good enough, piano player to do that and whatever. And so I didn't think it was possible. But of course, looking back, my passion for all of this has always been there. I just didn't realize it could be my job. Thinking back to my dad playing, Bach on the piano at home, and me just thinking, oh, that nice piece with all the fast notes. I had no idea that was planting seeds in me, that now Bach is one of my favorite composers. I've heard it since I was basically an infant. So I think, all those little things add up, but I didn't see them crystallize together until I was in college, and you just never know for sure if you're doing the right thing. But I just kept saying, I have to do this because it's what I love. If I can get up every day and do something that I love, even if it's hard, I feel like that's a huge triumph. So that's what I kept pursuing.
I think it's interesting that you actually are coming from a very different situation than I think most of us, including myself and most of my students here. I think there are maybe one or two of them that might have parents that actually were musicians. Do you feel like that played a factor into anything that you were doing? Do you feel like it helped, it hurt?
I think it helped in that it exposed me to music at an early age. But interestingly, my father tried to be my piano teacher, and that did not go well. And I didn't practice. I was a bad student. I don't know why to this day I didn't do more. So I think that actually hurt me, because if I had had a non-family member piano teacher, I might be a brilliant pianist today. I don't know. I can play piano because I practiced insanely when I was an undergraduate, and it's probably one of the most important skills that I have as a teacher. But it's interesting, when I told my parents I wanted to be a music major, they both said, oh, please don't do that. Please don't do that. They said, your dad did that, and he became a church musician, and it's been such a hard road for him, and you're going to regret it, and you're not going to be able to find a job. And I said, okay, but I'm going to do it anyway. And it was tense for a while, but I'm glad I did. I do think that my decision to pursue music education, because I love working with people, is a big part of me being able to do this as a full-time job. I think people that go into performance can also do that, but it tends to be much more cobbled together from different aspects of life. And it's a different kind of a life. And I wanted to have a little bit more of a stable, kind of dependable situation. So for me, education made the most sense, because I love the world of music with others, and helping people to change and grow through that. But yeah, my parents were, yeah, helpful in their influence, but not so helpful in the way that they tried to get me to not do it. So
Yeah, I think we can all relate to that one, actually. I don't think there's a parent here that was like, yeah, you're gonna go pursue music. They're all like, how are you gonna make money with that?
it's always the thing, right? How are you going to make money? How are you going to make money? But I think if you really, really love it, and you're clever, you can find ways to do it. I
Yeah,
do think an undergrad degree in education, if you want to teach, is a really, really good first step for all the other things, because you can always perform, you can always write, do all of those things. That's not to say it's the only one. And if you hate the idea of teaching, you shouldn't get a degree in music ed.
Mhm.
But I do think it's a really fabulous foundational first degree, because it's broad and it prepares so many aspects of you as a musician that whatever else you want to do, I feel like it gives you a great, first step toward the rest of your career, depending on what you want that to be.
Hmm. Hmm. Now you have you're starting your own choral series. That's pretty cool. And for those of you that don't know what that is, when we're looking at music in class, and then on the front cover of the music there, you'll see maybe some writing on the left hand side, like a bar across, and it'll say the Joe Michael Choral Series or whatever the case it is, the Joe Michael Scheibe Choral Series or whatever. And then and now there's the Amanda Quist Choral Series. So can you
There
talk to
is.
us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'll show you a picture of that. So in 2016, I was approached by, so this is kind of a lesson, I would say, in, and I don't know if I can share this with you, but I'll try. This is sort of a lesson in relationships. So when I was in graduate school, I went to school with a guy named Cameron Labar, and
Oh,
his,
what? That's fun.
yeah, yeah, and his wife, Susan Labar, um, uh, were just friends of mine. Well, it just happens that Susan Labar is now the editor of Walton Music. So she wrote to me and she said, hey, Amanda, we would really like to start a choral series for you. And here are the pieces, here are some pieces. And what do you think about this? Da, da, da. And I said, yeah, let's do it. So 2016, we started. So now I have, I don't know, 20, 25 titles in there. And they're all pieces that I've gone through and said, yeah, I think this is the right stuff. And it's a combination of early music all the way to music being written today. And basically what happens with that is I get a very small percentage of the sales, but because it's got my name on it, I can then take it out. Like, for example, I'm doing the Texas All State. So I'm going to choose a piece from that choral series to program with them. And what it does is it allows me to promote composers that I think deserve a little bit bigger platform. So I look for people who for example, we're about to start a piece called Surge by Raffaella Aliotti. So she's a Renaissance female composer, and she has written beautiful stuff. And so we're going to publish one of her pieces in the choral series so people can learn about it. So that's kind of the purpose of it. So yeah, it's been going since 2016. And it's been a lot of fun to work on. It's a really great thing. And that was because of a relationship from graduate school that started.
Another reason why I really love music just in general and being in this field is and why I think a lot of parents are necessarily scared about people who get into music is because it does require such a large part of you to be not to be, but to have a very strong entrepreneurial spirit because, like you were saying, I mean, you went into education, I guess, primarily for the stability of it, but then something like this, that's definitely another way to generate an income that, maybe not the normal people might not think about even, or even have the connections for it, but then also create the connections for it. I mean, that's also another it was like two tidbits right there, because I mean, that's something that I'm also sharing with them all the time with like, hey, from 6th to 8th grade, you guys are in the same choir, the same program together, and you're going to start seeing the same kids over and over and over again. And you're going to go into high school and then potentially in college. And when you guys get out into the music world, you're going to see that you just interact with so many of the same people. So it was like two tidbits in there. Nice.
Absolutely. And one of the organizations that I'm a part of, I'll just put up here as well, so you can check these out later, is ACDA. It's the American Choral Directors Association.
Mm-hmm.
And ACDA, many of you might know. Do some of you know about ACDA? Have you heard of it?
Yeah, we have the Florida branch in the first portion of the year. They tend to do some honor choirs here for Florida, and typically we've sent in our men for it. This past year, there was like a bit of a registrational issue where the processing of the check or payment didn't come in time, and so they didn't listen to us. But you know, that's okay. From there, it stemmed another relationship. And so now we're going to have an opportunity to go sing in Jacksonville with the Jacksonville Honor Choir situation going on. Yeah, so that's some upcoming stuff we have. But yeah, no, they definitely do. And then also ACDA just started a virtual choir thing that is available internationally. And so we sent in a recording. And well, they might not know this, but I sent in a recording, and they have selected it. And right now we are currently the featured choir for middle school in there.
Awesome.
Yeah, very cool.
Bravo. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So ACDA is an example of an organization that can help you build your career. So when I was a teacher in San Jose, the ACDA, so each state has a chapter, right? So Florida has one. And at that time I was living in California. So I reached out to the California president and said, hey, I'd love to be involved. And I just took the initiative. I found the person's info online, said I'd like to be involved. And he said, oh, great, we'd love you to be involved. We have a new position coming open for student activities, which is student chapters. I said, sure, I'll do it. So then I moved to New Jersey and I reached out to the New Jersey president and said, hey, I'm new, would love to help. And so I ended up getting on the New Jersey board as the college and university chair. While I was there, I also saw a national position come open, which was the student activities chair for the national ACDA. So I thought, why not? I'm just going to reach out and throw my information in. And they ended up selecting me to do it. So I got to then deal with all student chapters across the entire country. And boy, that let me meet so many people and make so many important connections. And I started running the ACDA student conducting competitions, which I actually participated in when I was a grad student. And they felt like I was a good person to do it because I had been through the experience before. And so that's what I did. And that led to me now becoming the coordinator of all college and university activities. So for ACDA, there are 4 coordinators for the entire country, and I'm one of those 4. And so, that was just me continually reaching out to people and saying, hey, I'd love to help. I'd love to be a part of this. ACDA is an example of something that you do not get paid to do, but it brings back huge dividends because of the connections that you make. And lots of the honor choirs and things that I've done, I have no doubt are because of the people I've met and who said, oh yeah, Amanda Quist, you remember her? Let's get her to come and do the West Virginia All-State or whatever. So I think it's just believing that you have something to say and you just keep reaching out and you keep, don't give up. So it's been a really good connection point for me.
How long would you say that it's taken you to get to this point here?
My whole life. I guess. I would say, my starting as a college director at San Jose State, I started there and started doing little regional choirs and, little things here and there. And then when I shifted to Westminster, that was really fortuitous because there are so many people across the country who are graduates of Westminster Choir College. And they were very kind to me and welcomed me by saying, oh yeah, we'd love to have you come and do our church festival or whatever. And so just over time, there were many times where I thought, I'm never going to do an honor choir. I'm never going to have the opportunity to do this and that. Many, many times when I would feel really stressed about that. But then over time, as relationships build and as things, you get better and better and you get more connections, doors begin to open. And I try to go through just about every door I can and still stay sane. So yeah, it's been a long road.
That's so funny. That segued so beautifully into the next question here. So I think it's really easy to give like a life story or a background of it, and for things to just seem like at least as the participant, as the viewer, as the listener, for things to seem or appear to be like, wow, that's just so amazing how things lined up, and it just seems to have worked out so well for you because things were easy. But the next question here is, was it hard and challenging to get to where you are right now?
Absolutely. Many challenges along the way. When I first got to California, I was a new college level teacher. And so just little things happen. Like you walk in and you think that they're just going to have everything all set up beautifully for you. And I had to do things like explain to my administrative head that, my chamber choir couldn't rehearse in a tiny low-ceilinged classroom, or drag chairs into a gym and find a upright piano. And, there's so many little fights that you go through on a daily basis to get what you want and what you think your students deserve. So absolutely, it's not easy. And, the thing that's hard too, a lot of people say, when I meet people who don't do music and they say, oh, what do you do? And I say, oh, I'm a choir director. And they say, oh, fun. And I think, yeah, it is fun, but it's an enormous amount of work. The kind of, like as a teacher, you don't just teach the same English book each year. Every year is a totally new curriculum because it's new music. Programming, criticism, I've faced all of those things and difficulties with colleagues and administrators. And, I've learned that it's really important to be a good communicator and to be diplomatic and to be patient and to let stuff roll off your back, because you can really get discouraged with things if you allow negativity or criticism to start to make you doubt yourself. So I just try to learn as much as I can. If somebody says, we didn't like this, or we think this, I try to think, okay, well, what did I miss something there? I try to just be open. And I try to make sure, most importantly, that my colleagues know that I'm always interested in our collective success. I think if you go in and you say, oh, it's all about me and I'm going to run the world, that's great, but then you're an island and a lot of people don't want to support you, especially today. I think that model used to work, kind of the idea of like the conductor on a pedestal and everybody worships, but today people aren't interested in that. They're interested in collaboration and working together. And I think it's important that you just know who you are and don't give up, because it is not an easy road at all. There have been many, many, many setbacks. And, for each victory, there's probably at least two trip up and fall down and pick yourself back up off the ground again. So absolutely.
What would you say was some of your beneficial things to give you that strength to keep going through other people's negativity? I mean, I find that there are just so many people that maybe things didn't work out for them, or they had a negative experience that they just throw it on you, or maybe they've had some issues that they're personally going through on their journey, and they assume that because it's their struggle, it needs to be everybody's struggle. And so they, try to tear you down.
Yeah, that's great. Great question. That's so much of life, I think, is when we come into conflict with people, it's often has to do with power, insecurity, personal struggle, things like that. So keeping that in perspective is helpful. I'm a spiritual person, and I think that aspect of me has always strengthened me and helped me through things. And that's, an important part of how I stay kind of on my path. I think most importantly, though, is that I have a really deep and strong belief in the power of music to change people, and that's really important. It's really important because it's not just music, but it's, singing about love and death and birth and pain and everything that makes us human. And those things are never going to change. Those are always going to be a part of being humans. And the fact that what we do, I think, is so much bigger than me. And I believe in it so strongly that I don't let go of that. When things are bad, I always try to get myself back to the music and the purpose of why I do what I do. And I'm passionate about it, because otherwise all the little stuff that happens can really derail you. And sometimes it does. There are days where I say, ugh, I'm just going to go work at Walmart. I'm done. I can't deal with the politics anymore. And I have friends who have done that. I have friends who have said, forget it. I'm out of here. But, you know, to me, it's such an important mission that I keep encouraging people to get engaged with music making, because I do believe it changes us. And I think it's an important thing for our growth as humans. And to me, that's one of the deepest things. And I'm just, you know, my hope is that I can be a conduit for that. So that kind of keeps me on the path, but it's not easy. And I talk to friends and family just like you know, I'm sure. And I find people I can trust, and I try to avoid people who don't seem to want to play fair or want to be positive. But boy, that's hard when you're younger. When you're in school, I think that's one of the great challenges of being a middle school student, is the pressure of socialization. It's huge. It's the hardest thing in the world. Are you cool enough? Are the things you do acceptable? Are you, you know, and it's really hard. And I think it's important that you try to stay true to who you are, even though you know you're going to come into contact with people who aren't so helpful. I'll just say.
And I think something you said there that I just want to make sure that they also realize as well is that realization of, hey, if this person is not being helpful and is not someone positive in your life, then you don't necessarily have to have that person in your life. And I think that's also a really difficult thing to go through as a middle school student, because you almost want that love and appreciation from everyone, even if the person is a douche. And it's kind of hard to not want the douche to appreciate you as well, and realizing that, hey, you know what, I don't need that douche in my life.
That's right. Yeah, that's a perfect way to say it. I mean, sometimes the people who are the most bully-ish tend to be the people that we want to impress the most, because they somehow give us this illusion that their affection or acknowledgement is worth something more than someone else's, because of their kind of antagonistic energy. But boy, if it makes you feel bad and it tears you down, I think you stay away from people like that. But you know, you're not gonna. It's just hard. The socialization of all of this is the hardest thing in the world. And I'm looking at my 1-year-old son and imagining him going through school and how hard that's going to be for me, and how many times I'm just going to want to, you know, just keep telling him this over and over again, that, you know, just you are amazing just the way you are. You know, maybe you're a little short, or you're a little tall, or you're a little whatever. It's all fine. You know, you deserve to be here. Your voice is worth hearing. But that is hard to remember sometimes when there's pressure like that. And I know that's a very real thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Oprah said it best when she says that everyone just wants to know that you see them and that they matter.
Yes.
That's what we all want.
And that's the core of it, I think, for me as a teacher, is I want every student I work with to know that their voice is needed. Even if they're not the best singer, the best reader, we still need them. Their gifts are there, and they may look a little different than the person they're sitting next to, but they're still valid, and they're still worth being a part of the group. Absolutely.
Okay, a little bit of a lighter question. They would like to know, how is it teaching students at the university level?
Yeah, I love it. They're interesting. They're all over the map in their journey, and they're all in different places. But what I like about university level students is that they are sort of adults, but they're still sort of transitioning from living at home into living away, and they still need you. And it's nice to be needed. But I love it. I love the fact that they are, they're there because they're choosing a career in music, and I love to be a part of that journey. So I think it's really pretty great. It's not perfect. There are plenty of college students who, you know, maybe their thing is not to be in choir or whatever. But overall, I really, really love working with them because there's so many things they're capable of, and I'm able to help them navigate the steps toward becoming full-fledged adults in the workforce. And I think that's a really cool thing to be a part of.
Awesome. What do you think of our current situation with COVID and all this kind of good stuff?
Well, I think, well, of course, I'm sure similar things as you. I'm frightened. I think people are doing a variety of things between not taking it seriously enough and some are taking it seriously. I think it's a really, really crazy situation. I think we have to be careful. I think it's really unfortunate that we have to meet via Zoom. However, I've had a chance to talk to some people that I probably wouldn't have talked to, and that's been really cool, like you guys. And also, I'm hopeful that people will value the arts a little more when this is over, because they'll realize that being in the same room with other people and singing together is necessary. And I hope that we get some value out of it. And I just think that this is just the weirdest thing any of us have probably seen. And I feel very positive about it, but I don't have any misgivings about the fact that this is affecting people's anxiety levels and depression levels pretty profoundly. And I think it's really important to reach out and to stay connected, and to reach out if you're feeling sad or if you're feeling, you know, despair, because those are really real feelings. And it's important to stay connected and things like this. So I think it's a strange time, but I think we're going to get through it.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree. We even started a session last Friday, where we're just talking about happiness. And if you are somebody who's inclined to not have happy thoughts, what are some ways to help train your mindset into a more happy mindset? So that's really cool.
That's great.
They want to know, did you ever do anything before you did music? Like, did you have other jobs, anything?
Oh, sure. I worked at a pizza shop. So I used to spin pizzas, and that was kind of fun. I was a waitress for 5 years. Let's see, I worked at Red Lobster. I'm sure you've heard of Red Lobster. I worked at a place called Arnie's, which you probably haven't heard of, but it's like a restaurant in Grand Rapids, Michigan, where I'm from. I was a carpet cleaning administrative assistant, so I would answer the phone and set up carpet jobs. Yeah, I've kind of done everything you can think of. I actually was a basketball coach for a period of time.
Were you really?
Yeah, and I did a lot of voice teaching. A lot of voice teaching. That's kind of how I supported myself in the summers in the early days, as I taught voice all summer long. So yeah, I'm trying to think. I've done some carpentry because my family is a whole line of carpenters, and so I've done some of that. So yeah, kind of done everything.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Gotten my hands very dirty, yes.
So would you say that it seemed like from your previous story that that your experience into that small jazz vocal group really kind of shaped your mindset and thoughts and like pushed you into the direction of music? Would that be your pinnacle point, that was your turning point, so to speak?
I would say so. I had never been pushed so hard musically in my life, and realized that I could actually do it. I just needed to figure out what tools I needed. I remember being an 18-year-old and being given an assignment: learn this piece, and by next week it has to be memorized, and you'll sing it alone on the microphone. And I was terrified, and I cried and cried because I thought, I can't do this. I'm not at this level. So I found a friend who was a really good musician. I said, help me, teach me how to do this. And he helped me through a bunch of strategies, and I got up the next week and I did it. Thank God. Because I saw what happened when other people couldn't step up. And it was really just, the embarrassment of not being ready. And it just pushed me so hard, and I loved the level of music we could achieve because everybody just did their job. Everybody just worked hard, and that was so fun. But there were only 12 of us. So that's pretty easy it's easy to motivate 12 people to work that hard when they're at the college level. But yeah, that was a turning point. And I think biggest reason is because my director was so passionate and I loved him. And I wanted to do what he did. I wanted to inspire people the way he inspired me. So yeah.
Nice. What has been to you the most important thing you've done in your career?
Oh, well, if you're thinking about a professional level thing, I don't even know. I used to run a summer camp at Westminster, and I had high school students from all over the world that would come, and that was pretty important because those were some students who wanted to be music majors and some students who were just like, I just want to sing, whatever. And those 2 weeks were such an intense time of connection for those students. They became like a family. I have a pair of students who came through that program that are now married, that would never have met each other if they hadn't come to it. And there's something about that particular program, and the sort of like any level is okay, just come and be a part. There's something about that that's been really life-changing for me and for a lot of those students. And that's probably one of the places where I feel like I've made a difference for students, because they weren't all just, I'm a music major. They were just kind of from all walks of life. And that was pretty amazing what we did together.
Awesome. All right, lighter-hearted question here. How many majors are there in music at the School of University of Miami? Do you know?
Well, I hope I get them all. At the undergraduate level, one of the most unique majors we have is music therapy. Most schools don't have music therapy at the undergraduate level, and so that's pretty cool. We have music education, vocal performance, and I'm just going with the kind of singing majors here, but there's music business and industry, music engineering, composition. You can be a Bachelor of Arts in Music, which is a broad degree, kind of like a liberal arts degree. There's contemporary, and so if you're more interested in songwriting and popular music. And there's jazz, vocal jazz. Boy, am I missing any major ones in there?
Business, maybe?
Yeah, music business. So those are undergrad level, and then similar at the master's. So in my field, I do Master of Music and Doctor of Music in choral conducting. And there's Master of Music and Doctor of Music in vocal performance, and in most of the other fields that I just named. So that's just in the Frost School, and that's for people whose primary instrument is voice. And then on the instrumental side, of course, very similar kind of setup. Orchestra, band, all of those instruments that are involved, yeah. And piano, harp, guitar, those are all choices, yeah.
Do you have any other things you like besides music?
Yes, I love the outdoors so much. I grew up kind of tomboyish, I guess you would say, climbed trees, ran around, made forts, whatever. I have 4 brothers. I think that's probably the reason, and 1 sister. I love to fish, and my husband and I go fishing whenever we can. And I love to read, but I never have time because I have a baby. And yeah, and I used to love to dance, actually. I used to take dance lessons as a kid, and it was one of my favorite things, and I still love to dance, even if, my husband and I go salsa dancing or something. I love to listen to live music and just go out and hang out, have dinner, whatever. So yeah, those are kind of the things that we love.
Cool.
Being outside. Yeah.
All right. Taking a little bit more deeper turn now. How did you know what route to take and where to turn and what decisions to make during your career?
A lot of times I didn't.
Which could also spin off of this question as well. What did you need in order to become a choral director?
Yeah. So to become a choral director, I had to have certain degrees. There are several paths to what I do. My path is kind of a traditional one, music ed. teach, get experience, and then master and doctorate in choral conducting to teach at the university level. Some people start with a vocal performance degree and then they go into master in choral conducting. There's different paths. But how to make decisions, I remember having a decision between 3 different jobs at one point in my life and having no idea which one was the right one. I put them in a hat and picked one out and looked at it and tried to gauge my gut reaction. And weird stuff like that. And I would go, yep, I think this is the right thing. But so often you don't know for sure. Like when I made the move to Westminster, I wasn't sure if that was a good decision because I was going from being a director of choral activities to being one of 4 other conductors. But ultimately amazing things ended up happening because I went there. And people say, bloom wherever you're planted. So I think that's good advice. It's real easy to look at somebody else's life and go, oh, I wish I was doing X. The grass is always greener. But if you get up every morning and you're like, you know what, I like what I do and I'm happy and I can live the life I want to live, then I think that's a win. So, but making decisions is hard. I just talk to friends, family, and then I try to rely on my gut and I try to trust it as best I can. I'm sure I've made many wrong decisions, but I just keep not giving up. I'm tenacious.
Awesome. So we are about 4 minutes out. So I'm going to try to look through some of my remaining questions here. We've been getting through a lot of them.
Yeah.
I think we did that. Do you currently play any instruments?
I play the piano. And I don't play amazingly, but I play well enough to sort of keep up with my husband, I guess you would say. My husband is a very good jazz pianist. So I love to play the piano. I play the guitar kind of badly. And I can play the clarinet kind of, but mostly it's the piano for me. Yeah.
Did you ever give up something important to get to where you are today? And if you did, what was it? And do you think it was worth it?
Yeah, good question. I'll tell you a very specific story that's pretty personal, but hopefully it would be helpful to you. So when I lived in Texas, I had this person that I was dating and I fell in love with this guy and I thought he was the one, right? That was what I thought. And then I finished my degree and the job opportunity came for me to go to California. And I thought, oh, we're so in love and he'll come with me. It'll be great, and because my choices were super limited. And I remember that he kind of was like, I love you, but I don't think I can move out there. I don't know what there is for me, and et cetera, et cetera. So that's an example of a time I had a choice to make. I could have just kept hanging around in Texas and seeing, do I want to see what I can find here? Or did I want to take the leap of faith and go and take this job? And I ended up deciding to take the job because I felt like if this really was a relationship that was worth it, that he would understand why that was important to me and that he would come with me. And ultimately that relationship wound up ending. And that was okay because it opened up the door for me to meet other people. And I would have never met my husband, who I'm, obviously married to now, had I stayed in Texas, and the rest of my life wouldn't have unfolded the way it is. So that's not to say I always choose career over relationships, but in that one instance, I had to make a hard decision, and I just felt like, as hard as it was, I knew that it wasn't worth me stopping my dreams if he wasn't willing to help support them. So yeah.
All right, so we got time for one more question, and I'm going to ask you, which one would you want, a lighthearted or a more serious question?
I think lighthearted is great. Sure.
All right, lighthearted it is. So when you were in schools and choir, and no, it didn't make sense. So if you were in choir in schools, I think is what he meant. And what kind of songs did you sing, but mainly what did you like to perform?
Yeah. We sang everything: pop, jazz, musical theater, classical music of all kinds. When I was younger, I really loved jazz. for lots and lots of reasons. And then as I got older, I fell in love with early music. And I think today my favorite music to sing is Renaissance and Baroque music, probably because my voice is it. And so I would prefer to sing Thomas Tallis or Bach any day of the week. That's my jam. That's my stuff. But I still love jazz. I still love pop music, all of that. And I actually put a little link here in your chat of one of my recordings with my choir, Canrai, if you're interested. It's got a lot of that kind of repertoire on it, as well as some modern stuff that you might like to listen to. So it's got a lot of my favorite pieces on it, I would say.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you again so much for being here. Just so you knew, in terms of numbers, I think the highest number we hit was 42. A couple have had to drop out. One had to drop out because she had to go to her next class. But thank you so much for being here with us and taking time out of your day.
I'm so happy to meet all of you, even if we're just virtual for now, but hopefully we'll meet in the future in real life soon. It would be really fun.
Absolutely. We would love to do that.
Yeah, thank you for your time.
No, thank you for being here. And it's great to see everybody else. I'll see you guys on Wednesday for a follow-up with this, and we'll talk also more about what else we're doing and who else we're bringing in. We've got a lot of other great people just as equally awesome as her, including her husband, who will also be one of our featured guests. So we look forward to that. And thank you guys for being here.
Thank you, everybody. Good to see you.
All right. Good
Ciao.
Bye-bye. How fun.
Oh, I'm so bad at one of these like social media things. Like I should have taken a picture and been like, hey, chat with Amanda Quist. But I'm
that's all right.
good at
Well, in the
remembering
future, you
that
can
stuff.
do that.
Huh?
If you recorded it, you can go back and do that.
Oh, that's true. Good thinking. Good thinking. Let me end the recording.